Dutch people, what is happening? I saw this map and thought it was just a map of rivers ending in the lowland countries. It's actually GPS data of Dutch cars leaving the Netherlands during the summer holiday. They're like forming rivers, but to do the opposite, to leave that country. I guess the German people make jokes. They're called the Dutch caravan. And I guess all of continental Europe usually sees stuff like this. And can you imagine that traffic? It's really interesting because this does not account for people just taking boats or ferries or planes even. These are just the Dutch people driving to their summer vacation spots. They seem to really like Italy, parts of the Balkans, as well as Iberia, of course. Interesting to see some of these Dutch people just go to Hamburg for this summer. Why? I'm not trying to go to Hamburger land in July. Dutch caravans are such a meme in Germany. Wonder if it's the same in France. That route to Marseille must be packed. That's what I was thinking about. Checkmate, climate deniers out there. I'd love to see a feature made by David Attenborough about the annual migration of the Dutch. I'm reading how people from the Netherlands generally have longer vacation times, as well as the culture just promotes leisure and exploration. Honestly, there's a lot of people that should start living this type of life. I know I should. I wish this map zoomed out even more because you know they're going further than just Spain or Bosnia. Apparently some are in fact going to Bosnia. Even Wales and up here towards Scotland. And these are just the cars. Can you imagine how many Dutch people are on bike? They sure do love their bicycles in this country. Believe it or not though, you don't always have to leave your home to visit another place. Because this month the Kingdom of France and Prussia can visit you. Don't ask me how that's possible. These nations have been dead for like 200 years now or something. Well, Poland can technically invade you right now, but let's have just a pin invade you, a Poland pin. I would recommend that. Head over to makeship.com quick, time is running out. Also, while you're over there, don't forget to vote to tell me which country you'd like me to bring back from the dead. The nation of Myanmar recently had an earthquake hit them so hard you could see the seismic waves in Europe. It should be noted that Myanmar is very far away from that continent. You're talking over thousands of miles. The earthquake was a magnitude 7.7, which is nothing to be messed around with. So many videos online where you can see the destruction. But amazingly, you don't even need to look at the physical destruction. You can just look at this map. Look at the waves that form over the continent. You can literally see just like waves in the water. Again, these are seismic waves. The red is showing uplifting while the blue is showing lowering. Okay, and obviously you can see at this point the earthquake is getting more and more intense. This was a very long earthquake, by the way. That's coming from the earthquake expert here. I live in LA. I'm not the expert, but we do experience these pretty much every month, every day, but you don't feel it. The quake lasted for 85 seconds, which is a minute and 15. That is a long time for like really rough shaking. Obviously, there were moments during that sequence where the shaking was going to be far worse, far more vigorous. Another thing I've been hearing about is you'll notice there's not as many videos coming from Burma itself. You're seeing a lot of videos from Bangkok, Thailand, or from India. That is because the internet is still very censored in this country. They've obviously been dealing with an internal conflict for like 4 years now. Yeah, the internet is heavily restricted and censored. Also, only about 44% of the population even have access to the internet. These seismic waves just really show that obviously giant earthquakes literally can be felt all throughout the world, whether by sea or on land, because this was really giving me kind of tsunami vibes. That's what it feels like. Luckily, there wasn't also a massive tsunami people had to worry about. One of my favorite classes in college was called Natural Disasters. We had a unit on earthquakes. We learned how to plot P waves and S waves to determine the epicenter. Wow, I've never seen earthquakes presented this way. I'm just curious, is there nothing in Poland to help us with this data, or Spain? Because that's where it seems like the waves just magically stop. Also, just generally speaking, look at how much seismic activity happens in the Netherlands. Like before even the waves got there was all this stuff happening. And it sounds like it might be caused by hydrocarbon extraction, or mostly gas. Speaking of gas though, gas in terms of cars, not farting. Where is the best place to be a lover of vehicles? I've got to admit, immediately, I am not a very big car enthusiast. I've tried my whole life. I have appreciation for them. I just, it's an expensive hobby. There's more than just that. Maybe I'm just not man enough. But if you're gonna be a car lover, here are some of the best states to be in. Honestly, I just be having an appreciation for cars that just last long and are gas efficient. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like retro cars too. Would I ever buy one? Probably not, but I like it. But weirdly, I do find more of a desire in my heart to purchase a weird 1990s car that's lasted like 500,000 miles. Especially though if it's an old Toyota truck that might or might not have previously been used by some African warlords in a war against Libya. I'm gonna mount a massive cannon in the bed of that thing. Anyways, the worst place to like cars is apparently the state of Colorado. That's ranked on these factors: percentage of roads in good conditions, average annual number of days with snow, hail events, also registration fees and registration duration. Gotta also consider where the racetrack's at, car shows, percentage of uninsured drivers, as well as price per gallon. Just behind Michigan, Colorado got all the way in 50th place with a score of only 314. Knew my home state of California would probably not rank that high either. They're only in 44th. We're really just being driven down because of that gas mileage. Wow, that's so much more expensive than everybody else. Some of the best states to be in, though, are Kentucky, New Hampshire, Indiana. I'll be honest, I wouldn't have expected places in the Northeast like this. Arizona, Tennessee. Then we got West Virginia, North Carolina in 4th, Idaho in 3rd, Alabama, my birth state, and number 1 is Florida. Florida is the best state to be in according to this if you are a lover of cars. 71% of the roads are in good condition in Florida. You don't have to deal with snow or not too much hail, but the hurricanes though. Gas is not the greatest, but there's only 15% of the population that is uninsured. Wait, that's a little bit more of an interesting part in this whole graph. 22% of drivers in Mississippi are uninsured. Holy crap, Mississippi. 1 in 4. It's even higher in New Mexico. That's crazy. There's 25% chance that if you get in an accident in one of those two states, like they're not going to have car insurance and you're just going to have to fix your vehicle by yourself. From an enthusiast perspective, this is missing some key information such as beautiful, fun drives. I think that would have made California go a little bit more up the list. I think we have pretty good car enthusiast culture here, to be honest. Then again, don't ask me. I think Michigan being so low is hysterical. I grew up in Detroit and car culture is life there. That is a good point. I mean, this is like the car hub, isn't it? Oh, it does help that Florida's completely flat. Yeah. Because yeah, driving up to Big Bear here in California seems scenic, but you do risk losing your life. Everyone knows about highways for cars, but do you know about the highway for whales? That sounds like the most insane statement. Because whales move across ocean basins as they travel between feeding and breeding areas. I think human beings are always surprised to find out just how far whales travel sometimes. This humpback whale traveled 10,000 kilometers in the span of 2 years. Generally speaking though, these are their breeding grounds and their migration routes. Screw zodiac signs though, what's your favorite whale superhighway? That's what I'm about to ask my girl on a first date. I'd personally say this: do some breeding off the coast of Puerto Rico, then travel up the Atlantic Ocean to chill here just in between the seas. Probably, is this the point where the Titanic sunk? I'm gonna chill with that iceberg that sunk. That's a crazy statement. I'm not gonna finish that. I should have said screw zodiac signs. Where's your favorite humpback whale breeding area? Because you could do it off the coast of New York, it appears. That would certainly be a mood setter. We could also breed next to the great river nation of Gambia. Or if you like it a little bit more cold, we got it off the North Pole too. Generally speaking, it looked like these breeding areas were like kind of warmer waters, but that's not always the case, I guess. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Love that whales like move into the Mediterranean for like foraging. It seems like a hassle. It seems like you'd get lost. And again, Drew, how could you get lost on a highway, you idiots? You either go up or down. They seem to really like to breed off the coast of Brazil, like directly out. They don't go even further out. It's right on the beaches. I'm thinking these lines are like direct evidence they had of a whale doing this path. Whereas the overall like gray area that follows that's probably just like, you know, where more than likely other whales are inevitably going to go to. They're kind of showing the average, I guess. But it's crazy how many whales did just stay like literally on the beach of Brazil. Some of these whales definitely have Pinoy pride, moving all the way to the Philippines just to breed. And they just go back to Alaska, not even stopping in Japan. Now, it appears this map is mostly focusing on humpback whales. Damn, they pretty much have range. They're going everywhere. Of course, North Atlantic right whales, they're just staying in the Atlantic, specifically the North. Gray whales like the Pacific Ocean. Bowhead whales stay up in the North Pole. Fin whales just like, well, they don't like next to the equator. That's what it seems like. Sperm whales are everywhere, but they also they specifically don't like the cold. Clearly, some of the whales do not like super out there, super far away from land. There's like pockets in all their migration patterns. Like yeah, you can kind of see it. I guess that's just off the highway. How many times have you just like gone off the side of the highway where there's just a bunch of trash and stuff? Maybe that's where felony whales go to, I don't know, do some community service. This map was a little more interesting than I expected. As someone who has just seen a blue whale for the first time this year, they are truly magical creatures. Where were the orcas at though? Hopefully not trapped in a prison in SeaWorld. These countries really don't like immigrants. No, that's not true. But these are countries with less than 1% of their population being immigrants. So out of the nearly 1.5 billion people in India and China, less than 1% of that are immigrants. That's still a pretty big number though, like 1% of a billion. I mean, you're still talking 15 million people. So it's still less than 15 million people. Okay, that's still a pretty low number, I'm not gonna lie. So there's less than 15 million immigrants that are living in India or China. Not surprised to see North Korea on this list, or Afghanistan, or Iraq. Okay, there's some usual offenders, I guess, that I'm not surprised about. But Brazil? That one's insane. How does Brazil not have more immigrants? I thought people would move to Brazil all the time. There's literally 211 people living here. There's literally less than 2.1 million immigrants in Brazil. That's crazy considering the genetic makeup of Brazilians. They're so diverse. Like Cuba's not really surprising. Haiti's not really surprising. Jamaica, kind of shocked by the Philippines. Also noticed that Thailand isn't here, so they do have more than 1% of their population being immigrants. That's not surprising, but I feel like the Philippines would be the next closest to getting there, maybe. Dang, Bangladesh didn't make the list either. So people, oh, are a lot of Indians moving to Bangladesh? Pakistan didn't make the list. Not a single country from Europe, though. That, I'm sure, is going to be in the comment section. Actually surprised by Brazil. One would think they'd get a lot of Bolivians, Venezuelans, and Paraguayan immigrants. Well, the only issue is these are Spanish-speaking countries. I don't know if Spanish speakers are going to want to move to Brazil who speaks Portuguese. Maybe that's an aspect of it. Note some of the countries that didn't make the list, like Iran, Bolivia, Paraguay. Wait, how the hell did Venezuela not make the list? Venezuela has more than 1% of their population migrants. What? Okay, this is a big thing to note. These are also countries with massive populations. That's huge. If you have a huge population, you are going to be much less likely to have a big percentage of migrants moving. The number itself is probably still large, though. I really like this comment. Indonesia also has a relatively weak brand as a country, whereas people know where they're going to in Thailand. People in Indonesia don't even know they're in Indonesia. They just know it as Bali. That's really funny because I've literally heard of Bali, but I didn't. It's gonna sound so stupid. I didn't know where Bali was. I don't know where that place was located in. But yeah, branding comes into play when it comes to like where migrants want to move to. Obviously, Japan has done a great job with their PR and rebranding since, well, World War II. Yeah, I can't imagine like the internal migration that happens in India, China, Indonesia. Also, yeah, surprised Japan didn't make the list. There's approximately 3.4 million foreign residents in Japan, 2.7% of the entire population. Wow. You know what's funny? A lot of those might be from Brazil too. They're mostly from China, but they're also coming from Brazil, South Korea, even the Americans in Okinawa. Has your country benefited from EU membership? Apparently 74% of Europeans agree with this, that they have in fact benefited. Some big ones being Portugal, Ireland, Croatia. But some of the countries lower on the list are a little bit more surprising. France at only 65%. Those numbers are still really good though, let's be honest. 67% in Italy. Austria, Czechia, and then those previous two countries are the lowest on the list. Oh, actually it's Bulgaria. Bulgaria is only at 61%. Now that is surprising. I'm noticing a theme here with some of these countries. It feels like the closer to Russia you go, the more likely you're happy to be a part of the EU, and there's a lot of different factors behind that. Some historical, some not. Look at Lithuania's love for the EU, just compared to a neighbor Latvia, only 67%. Estonia's in the middle, just not geographically. Funny to see Belgium not as one of the higher countries compared to like their neighbors, Luxembourg, who is at 90, the Netherlands at 85%. I mean, Belgium, Brussels, you're like the headquarters. The headquarters for the EU and NATO. So Spain's loving the EU, Portugal's loving the EU. Now I'd love to know like why. What part of EU membership do these countries like the most? Keep in mind, this is not the same map as the Schengen zone. Like this is not like freely able to move across borders. There is a tiny bit of a difference between the European Union map and the people that have the Schengen status, Schengen zone, basically the zone that have abolished border controls and you can just kind of go in freely. Although those maps are a little bit outdated, Romania and Bulgaria are officially in this area now. It's now just Ireland and I think Cyprus that's left out. That's what I said immediately. Even if it may seem low, that's still 2/3 of the population. I mean, when it comes to democratic votes, 2/3 is still an overwhelming majority. Like, I think about it from the perspective of the US, like a president hasn't won 2/3 of the voters in, I can't even remember. Oh, 1984. No, actually not even. Even though the map looks like a complete red wave for Ronald Reagan, he only got 58% of the vote. Yeah, so these numbers are absolutely insane in reality. Yeah, I'm interested to see. Probably a lot of countries started off maybe more skeptic. Things have definitely changed. And I wonder with all the recent events with US politics if, you know, pride and satisfaction with EU membership is only going to go up. Talk about censoring history. This is an old Polish map from 1976 that clearly reduces the involvement of the Soviet Union during World War II when both the No-No Germans and the Soviet Union attacked the Poles. We got all these blue lines everywhere, much thicker, and then, oh yeah, that's right, the USSR did a little bit of this, but it's all good. Gotta remember the historical context of this map though. though, back in 1976, well, it was the Cold War. Poland was in the Eastern Bloc, and they were allied to the Soviets. Probably weren't allowed to criticize them too much either. They were probably just like an awkward anime girl like, oh yeah, that's right, we did do that. Well, we did it out of love, because the arrows were smaller than what Germany did to you, Poland. In reality, the map should have looked a bit more like this. Remember, this was the time period where the Germans and Soviet Union were working together. They really didn't want you to remember that, though, back in those days. Back before Operation Barbarossa, these two were dividing up Eastern Europe just between them. Poor Poland, rip. This is just a really kind of hilarious map overall. What a way to do it. I mean, back in the 70s and behind the Iron Curtain, you're not going to be able to check that work anyways. I'm kind of just surprised they even put Soviet arrows in general. They could have just been like, no, 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 no. The Germans were the ones that completely invaded you. That's it. We didn't do nothing. I think this map is very interesting because it was made during a time where it was obviously uncalled for to criticize the Soviet Union too openly. Look, bro, these green arrows look so much chiller than the big aggressive blue arrows. Such cute, polite little arrows. There's apparently a difference in the wording itself in Polish too. The German offensive versus the Soviet entrance / advancement. This map with this skewed history from a giant communist country makes me think of another giant communist country with skewed history that we're not allowed to talk about. A certain thing that happened in a square back in 1980. Where are you wasting your time at? The world's most visited websites? It's probably not Zen, unless, what, you live in China? Oh, my bad. I don't know why I thought that was gonna be, okay. Oh, it was formerly Yandex. I can't even mention this next website, but I'm sure you can guess. Then there's Netflix, the average amount of time people spending here, 7 minutes. LinkedIn with 8 minutes. These people are just trying to find a job. They're trying to get their bag. Microsoft 360, it's only 216. Okay, here's China. Definitely note that these are some of the most visited websites, but not always are people spending like a lot of time on them. Note the difference. Then we got TikTok. I actually thought that TikTok would have slightly higher numbers than that. I will doom scroll all morning. Amazon, people spending almost 6 minutes here. Oh. Are they wait, what the hell? I don't even know anymore. Yahoo Japan, then just regular Yahoo. Who's still going on Yahoo? Reddit! Wikipedia, one of the most visited websites. I love how high Wikipedia is punching above, like with some of these giant corporations. Look at ChatGPT coming out of nowhere. It didn't even exist 2-3 years ago. WhatsApp, not surprising. Gotta text some people back. Look at X. Oh my goodness. They don't have that many users, but yeah, the users they do have, they're spending so much time on the website. More than Instagram, even more than Facebook. The second top visited website is actually the website that people spend the most time in. It's YouTube at 20 minutes. Google is obviously the top website, but you don't really spend that much time in Google, obviously. And again, this is why YouTube always tells us creators, that Netflix is their biggest competitor. I am fighting with Netflix. I am competing with Love is Blind right now, or whatever else. It's a crazy thought. This can't be right though. Netflix only 7 minutes? This has got to be like desktop browsing, right? Maybe TV too though, to be honest. There's more and more, I mean, when I look at my own metrics, more and more of you guys are watching my own videos on television. Maybe you right now, I'm watching you. I see what you're doing in there. How do people spend more than 40 seconds per visit in Google? 10 minutes? Y'all go into page 3 before adjusting your search? Wait, what do people do on Yahoo? Oh, maybe Yahoo Finance or News and Sports. I'm surprised that got so high. As always with these things I review, take a lot of this stuff with a grain of salt. There's probably so many explanations for why certain websites are only getting certain times. There's little factors in there, like Google has also Google Maps. This one's got some shockers in here. This is the longest land border you share with another country. For Poland, it's actually not Germany, it's Czechia. And same for Germany. Germany has all these neighbors, but the longest border it has is actually with Czechia as well. Honestly, I thought the German-Polish border would be the longest one, maybe. Or maybe even with the Netherlands or France. And here's the craziest one of all that everyone's probably paying attention to, Brazil. You might be asking yourself, how does France have the longest land border with Brazil, a country in a completely different continent? That is because of the very famous territory of French Guiana. It's at least very famous in the geography community. This seems to be everyone's favorite fact. It's called French Guiana, but it's essentially just France. And yes, it is a territory that borders mostly Brazil. That border in South America is longer than the border France has with Spain, Italy, Switzerland, Germany, Luxembourg, and Belgium. Not by much, it's just barely, but still. Obviously, the longest land border the UK and Ireland have is just with each other here with Northern Ireland, and then Denmark has no other choice. Of course, it's going to be with Germany. Little shocked by Switzerland, though, because Switzerland obviously borders Liechtenstein, Austria, Germany, France, and then Italy. I guess it is Italy. Italy's biggest border is also with the Swiss, not France, not Austria. The microstates don't count. There's a couple microstates in Europe that are completely engulfed, like the Vatican City and San Marino. Also, there's Monaco down here. This is the giant land border that Spain has with Portugal, so of course they're beating out France. Biggest land border Turkey has is actually with Syria. Serbia also completely surrounded by nations. Their longest border is with Romania. Ukraine, the second biggest European nation in terms of land area. Their biggest border is with Russia, unfortunately. So is Belarus. So is Finland, which is why the Russians really didn't want the Finns to join NATO. That is a lot of new border. Russia's got Kazakhstan over here. Part of the illusion can be explained, of course, by obviously the fact that we live on a globe, but not this flat map. So the flat map is a little bit deceiving. Poor Iceland. It's quite isolated up there. The guy that made this map basically asked himself, how can I use the fact that the longest border France has is with Brazil due to French Guyana? I know, let's make an elaborative map of all of Europe. I'm gonna butcher that comment, but yeah, I could see that was probably the thinking. When Brazilian laughing meets French laughing, France behaves not like a sane country as always. This chart is deceivingly horrific. The birth years of veterans. So first starting off with the veterans of the Revolutionary War, or how the Americans got their independence. A lot of the people that fought in this war were born between the years of 1726 and 1767. You can do the math and see that some of those people that were fighting in that were awfully young, maybe like 13. But it gets worse than that. Next American War, or the War of 1812, a lot of these veterans were born in 1762 or 1799. An awfully big range of people that were forced to fight in that war, considering the battle only took place for 3 years. Then we got the Mexican-American War, the Civil War. Some of the oldest veterans to fight in this were from 1811. So there's like 50-year-olds out there. But also, once again, there was 13-year-olds. Then we've got this Spanish-American War, the Philippine Insurrection. Now here's when things get really interesting, the World Wars. So World War I, these veterans that fought in World War I were more than likely, they were all born between 1872 and 1900. More than likely, they weren't 14-year-olds in this one. The 14-year-olds were probably 18 and fought in 1918. But, I mean, I'm sure there's some ones that slipped through the cracks. Definitely. All the stories of people like signing up for the wars way before they were 18, it's crazy. I was waiting to get to this one though. World War II. World War II takes place, well, according to this, between 1941 and 1945. At least this is America's years in the war. Those veterans are born anywhere between 1877 and 1925. Just do the math on that. That means that there was definitely some 60-year-olds out there that probably fought in World War I too if they survived. If someone was born in 1877 and they fought in 1941, that means there would have been a 64-year-old at least. That's considering he fought the first year. He might have survived until the second year or third year. There were veterans out here pushing 70 in World War II. What the hell? Then we got the Korean War is the next war that takes place. There's clearly one 50-year-old that probably fought here too. And finally, the Vietnam War. This is just an interesting chart because it's making me realize, like, wow, the people that fought in Vietnam, they are getting awfully old. Some of them were born during World War I. The Vietnam War obviously was a very, very long war, lasted a long time. Well, this chart is actually only saying it lasted 1964. I technically started in like the 50s with the French. But yeah, this is all from the American perspective. I'm assuming all these numbers are coming from the US. There might be even, I can't even imagine what was happening on the Soviet side. There had to have been a 70-year-old fighting for the Soviets against the Germans. I have no doubt. There probably was like a 9-year-old too. A 9-year-old girl. I wouldn't be, they needed everyone on deck. It's mind-boggling to me that someone could have been a young child during the Civil War and still be alive to see World War II start. There was a dude that saw Lincoln get shot and made it to television 90 years later in 1955. Holy moly, this man is about to turn to dust at any moment. Well, he's definitely dust now because this looks pretty, everyone in this. Holy crap.
96 years old.
Damn! And this was filmed in the 50s, I'm assuming? 56. Dang, that's crazy. He probably didn't even say that. This sounds like they probably just made him, they didn't even know what he was going to say. They were just going to put someone, they were just going to make up whatever title card. The other option was like, I saw Josephine cheating on Napoleon in France. Some exciting news for countries' fastest growing economies. However, there's some darker details about this data that would make it less happy. A lot of these places are growing so fast because they started so low. It's still fantastic news to see a country like South Sudan just destroying it with their real GDP growth projections. They're expected to jump 27%. But again, you can only do massive leaps like that because, I mean, the bar was on the floor. That is the unfortunate part of this. However, a big one that a lot of people are also talking about is Guyana. With Guyana recently discovering oil, they're expected to explode their economy. They're not exploding like South Sudan, but up 14%. Obviously, Guyana wasn't previously doing all that amazing either. Neither was Libya, but still a little bit of progress. It's all good. Even jumping 10% is fantastic. Senegal and Palau. Sudan up 8%. Uganda, Niger. Kind of amazing to see a place like Macau join. How does Macau Macau's already pretty rich. It's right there by Hong Kong. I thought they were, how are they exploding by 7.3%? Are they just getting insanely rich at this point? Because Macau's already known for being literally the Las Vegas of Asia. So are they just like bathing in wealth at this point? Then Bhutan, Mongolia, Zambia, Benin, Mongolia, Rwanda. Look at India go. That's pretty impressive for India growing 6.5%. That's amazing. I mean, again, like what most like Western governments, the US, France, I mean, we're just trying to grow 2% a year. The Philippines at 6%, Vietnam, Djibouti, well, the world average is at 3.2%. A lot of these countries in Africa, there's some in Asia, and just one nation in South America. Again, this is what a lot of the eyes are on Guyana. Also, fun fact, I think that's why the Venezuelans were thinking about, well, claiming Guyana not that long ago. That was not going to work out for them very well. These sorts of charts can be deceptive. For example, if I decide to start a business selling peanuts and then sell a bag of peanuts, 5 minutes later, my business will be one of the fastest growing businesses in the world. Yeah, like consider this little chart about the fastest growing religion. My religion grew by 100%. We have 38,000 members. Hope they're all okay with second place. Yeah, I mean, you can grow by 100% if just one person joins that. South Sudan being number 1 makes sense. It's a new country with resources and everyone and their uncle are investing in it. Again, if you're not convinced, just look at what's happening to Guyana already. In terms of the top 5 richest countries in South America, their per capita GDP is insane. I don't think on average the people here, I think there's a lot of very poor people, but there's becoming a lot of really rich people. And that's really pulling up the average. Also consider that there's only like a couple million of people that live here in general. So one like hyper mega billionaire would skew these results. Oh, look at that. There's not even a million people living there right now. Google's AI is literally calling this America's new Qatar. That's crazy. Dang, I need to go visit this place, I guess. Is this the Norway of South America? That's a really just funny statement. I hope they're giving back some of those oil profits to their people. And big ol' thanks to my April patrons. I time traveled back in 2025 to stop Drew from taking over the world. We only have 2 years left. Drew's Argentinian Trust Fund, Rip Grandpa. Alexander the Terrible. Carmel S. Connor Pavlik, DOOCHBAGGINS, Fredrik Tibblin, KingBearHaze, KirinoIsBestGirl, The Go, Nolan, NordTyrol, and Tambre.